Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to the amazing family and friends that are here. Great to have you in person, significant here. We're reunited with some of Sanders. Some people hopefully are here that maybe couldn't make it for Sanders originally. And we also know, of course, in the modern COVID Bat Mitzvah, Shalom to everyone that's at home or online. We're so glad to have you here with us as well. And we're here to celebrate, obviously, an amazing young person and her family. And we're here to celebrate Shabbat and be together and to, spread the spiritual goodwill and good energy and prayers both here in our shul but also online and kind of bring it together. It's a chance to really celebrate, be grateful. We've been through a lot. We're still going through a lot. But we're here, and we're here to celebrate. This is a message of Jewish endurance, is that we're here. So we're going to begin together on page 103, and we rise together with the gift of prayer, the blessings of gratitude, Birchot HaShachar.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan nosef bibina, להבחימנו יום ובין לילה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני בצלמו.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני בת חורים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני ישראל.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם פוקח עברים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם מרבי שרומים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם מתיר אסורים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם זוקף גבובים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם רוקע הארץ על המים.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המכין מצעדי גבר.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה לי כל צורכי.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם עוזס בגבורה.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אותן ישראל בתפארה.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם הנותן יעד כוח.
אמן.
122.
ברוך שאמר והיה עולם ברוך הוא ברוך עושה בראשית ברוך אומר בספר
ברוך כזה מקיים ברוך מלכם בסך הטוב יאמר ברוך למלך העולם ברוך יחיד חלמים מלך
יחיד חלמים מלך משובח וברד יד שמו הגדול ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מעולם ותשבחו.
Amen. You may be seated.
So Shabbat Shalom, friends. We're at the moment in our tefillah and our prayer service in which we just begin to arrive. We've all made it here into this spot, or if you're at home, you've made it into your tefillah makom, your place, but sometimes it takes a little while for the mind and the spirit to catch up. So we'll sing some psalms as we prepare for the more central elements of our tefillah. I wanted to offer as a kavanah, as an intention for our davening, our prayer this morning. This week's Torah portion is chock full. We are right in the midst of sort of a climactic part of our Exodus story. It's the end of the plagues, and eventually kind of the final moment where Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, like, we're done, we're out of here. But also a part of this week's parasha is when God commands Moshe and the people that they should begin to mark time for themselves. And it says literally that we will mark it with this first month. This shall be for you the first month. And the word for month in Hebrew is chodesh, which comes from the word chadash, new. And very interestingly, in the way that God commands this several times in a row, each time it says, it shall be for you a new month. Lahem, it shall be for you. So what does this mean that this month shall be for you? What's the for you part? And one of our great Hasidic masters and teachers, the Sfat Emet, really takes this to mean that the gift of renewal itself, the renewal itself through time is a gift. The idea that we can start over, that we can have a Shabbat to recharge, that we can begin a new day, that we can begin a new month, that we can begin a new season, that we can start over with 2022 for that matter. All of these opportunities for renewal, for starting over, for building something new inside ourselves is a gift. It's for us. And so the question is, how do we use that gift? How do we use this opportunity for a new beginning, for a recharge, for something new to grow inside of us? So God willing, this morning, this tefillah, this Shabbat, this B-Mitzvah, this gathering will be the chance for something new to stir from within. Maybe it's just a new thought, a new feeling, a new idea, a new hope, a new dream. That's also a gift. So we continue this morning with Ashrae, with the Psalm of Ashrae, focusing our intention on just being right here, being content with this moment on page 136. 136. Ashrae
מלכותך מלכות כהן צדיק נבחוק רבחו תלבזית כבשר שם קוד שלומך
ואנחנו נברכך מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. We continue now on page 141, as we conclude our Psukei de Zimra with Psalm 150. We take a moment to appreciate not only every soul who is here and every soul who is joining us from home, Kol HaNeshama, every soul, but also Kol HaNeshima, every breath. During this experience of COVID, we have the potential to add awareness and appreciation to simply breathe, to breathe a healthy breath, to feel our aliveness, to be here. Kol ha-neshama Take a deep breath, Nishima Mukha, as we prepare for Nishmat Kol Chai, the soul, the breath of every living being. Prays its own prayer of gratitude to God, page 145. Nishmat Kol Chai, Tivarech Shimcha, Adonai Eloheinu.
Bottom 146.
Mi'id melach u'mi'arog lach, ha'gadol ha'gibor v'nora, ha'nyon kodesh hamayim v'haaretz, ne'eleh lecha nishabechecha nefa'erecha nvarech et shem kodeshecha gamor leDavid b'archi l'Shadonai b'chol ramai et shem kodsho. Tzma duzecha, ha'gadol b'chvod shemecha, ha'gibor l'netzach, ha'nora b'norotecha, ha'melech ha'yoshev b'kisira v'nisah, shochen ad maharov v'kadosh shemo.
Echadu v'netzagim v'Adonai Shem navatihila.
Lefi yishanim titala.
Divrei Chadishon Hasidim Titrama,
B'lashon Chasidim Titrama,
ובקרב קדושים
תתקדש ומחלה לבבות עמך בית ישראל. להודות, להלל, לשבח, לכל רומם ולברך, ולקלס על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות. דוד בן ישי עבדך ושיחך, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו.
148. המלך הגדול הקדוש בשמיים.
ברכות והודות מיטב יד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני המלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל העולמים. יתקטל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בדברה חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובמכון, ובחתכון בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב, ימרו עמי שמי רבה מורה, אלמרו מעל הים. יתברך וישתבח ויתפר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קודשה, מינקו ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמידן בעלמה וימרו אמן.
149, it's like bow for the Baruch Hu.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
You may be seated. 150.
We begin with a blessing as we thank God for the earth and for all creation. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום, בורא את הכל, הכל
אבל ברוך דתו של מזרח, מוציא חמה מחומה, מלך נורמם לבדו ויסבח.
כרך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה ויין זותך מקינו לחיי עולם הבא. אפס פלטך כהוננו את המשיח, ויין דמלך משיענו לתחיית המתים.
151.
אל האדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך לפי כל נשמה, לו יטובו לעולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו, הנתקע
טובים עוד שבלילה יצא מדם יסכים, נזיף וקימנו גם הנזיף פירות שפך נותנים לו כל צפנות
שבח נותנים לו כל צבא, מרוד תפארו גדולה, שרפים ועופרים וחיות הקודש.
152 ליל אשר שבה מכל המעשים, יום השיעים יזמשינו שבתו
תתברך ושינו
תמושינו שבסדר חמישו Top 153
כולם
כולם
ראויים, כולם
גאולים, כולם עושים מאימה וביראה,
בצפונם וכולם פותחים אביהם, בקדושה ותורה, בשירה ובזמרה,
ומברכים ושברים ומברים, פורצים הקדישים הממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אדון שובה. כולם מקבלים עליהם מלכות שמיים זה מזה,
נענים רשות
זה לזה, יוזרה
בנחת רוח, בשפה ורעה ובנעימה, קדוש
העולם
עונים, אומרים
ביראה קדוש 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 הנצרות, אלוהים הארץ כבודו,
והאופנים וחיות הקודש, ורעש גדול, מנסים לעומת שרפים ומטה, משבחים
אומרי ברוך כבוד אדוני ברוך למחבר המזרח במלחמות מרימים בסבב שכמוזם אור חדש
אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני
בשמו
יוצר המאורות.
154, bring our four tzitzit together as one for Shema Yisrael. Abba avtanu Eloheinu chemla gdurav tirchav tirachamanu merchem merchem. Ha'er einei nevotecha dabech niben tvatecha. Nariv.
וקרבתנו לשמך קדושה באמת, להודות לך וליחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך שמו
הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
אמן.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם עליך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפו בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
156,
עם שמות תשבע
אשנוכי מצוותכם אליו. תעשר אחר אף המלך וכתבתם אז ביתך בישעריך.
ויאמר לנו שלום
זכרתם את כל מצוות.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת
ויציב דרכו וכמשל למענו. אמת.
לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים וכיסו נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת.
157.
אמת שאתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו מלכנו מלך אבותינו ואמותינו גואלנו גואל אבותינו ואמותינו יוצרנו צור ישועתנו כבודנו מצילנו מלב שמך אלוהים זולתך עזרת אבותינו ואמותינו אותנו מעולם.
דור משפטיך אשר ישמתך אמן.
תהילות לאל עליון ברוך וברך משה ומרים ובני ישראל לחנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו נא מי כמוך בנים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל אומה בעזרת ישראל ובדחינו מלך יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני על ישראל.
Amen. So, Chevra, pages 159 through 161. We'll pray together as a congregation. The next several pages are done silently. It's called the Silent Amidah. We'll place our feet together and face the arc towards Jerusalem. We begin together. We then continue with the prayers. After our communal prayers, feel free to offer whatever prayers on your heart. A chance to close your eyes and think the Shabbat, what you're grateful for, the blessings in your life, the challenges, who you're thinking of and holding in your heart this Shabbat. So 159 to 161 together, and the rest of the Amidah is done silently.
Adonai
Shabbat הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ממהות, ומביא גואלים לבניהם למען שלום ואהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקד מושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים ודריו להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחלקל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים. שונא נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. ניחמוך בגבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, לחיי המתים. אמן. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, כך כתוב על הנביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק, משמיעים כה מנסים לעומת צרפים לעומתם, ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומך, מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לה. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד. תשכון, תתקדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים, ועינינו תראינה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך ימלוך עד לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו מפילנו יש לעולם ועד, כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הגדול. Amen. Then you silently. 167.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
בהלמד דברך נורדני, ימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובמכון, ובחי כל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ימרו, אמן. יש מרבה מברך, לעולם עולם מהלמיה יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קודשה, ברכו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה וימרו, אמן. תתקבץ לטן ואותו לכו ישראל, קדם אבהון דבשמי וימרו, אמן. יש למרוב מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו והכל ישראל וימרו, אמן. עושה שלום ממרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו והכל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל וימרו, אמן. אין כמוך אלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך, מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני עוז למועדן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, אב הרחמים, היטיבה ברצונך את ציון, תבנה חומות ירושלים, כי לך לבד בטחנו, מלך הרב ונישא, אדון עולמים. ויהי בנשוא אהרון, ויאמר משה, הובה אדוני, ויבוצו אויביך, וינוסו משנאיך מפניך. כי בציון תצא טהרה, כי בציון תצא טהרה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים, ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו.
As our Bat Mitzvah stands in the middle, we turn to page 171. She leads us responsively in Shema Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Adon.
Turn towards the archives. Slight bow. Gadol Adonai iti.
יחדיו, לך אדוני הגדול, הגבורה והתפארת והנצח וההוד, כי כל השמיים ובארץ, כי כל השמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה והמנהסה לכל ראש, לך אדוני הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח וההוד, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה והמנהסה לכל ראש. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו לאדם רגליו, קדוש הוא.
תשתחוו לאור קודשו, כי קדוש Adonai Eloheinu. Maybe see everyone Shabbat Shalom, everyone Shabbat Shalom Varach. Wonderful to have everyone here that's here in person and those at home. We're now going to open the larger red books. It's called the Chumash. It's a copy of the Torah in book form. We're going to follow the Torah reading, the special, one of the heart and core centers of our, not only our tradition, but obviously we do on every Shabbat, a few days a week, and our B-Mitzvah will participate as well. We're in Parshat Bo. You can find that in the larger red books, the Chumashim, page 387, chapter 12, verse 29. As Rabbi Jenny noted before, we are in the earlier Torah portions of the book of Exodus, which is really dealing at the beginning very much with the famous Passover story of what happens in the freedom from Egypt, our enslavement. This parsha deals a lot with Moses and Pharaoh at kind of towards the end of the 10 plagues. For those of you that remember, the Charlton Heston version or the Prince of Egypt or whatever, okay, you know, or the real deal, okay? And so it's really a back and forth. And the first line is Bola Paro, is God tells Moses, you got to go back again, and you got to give it to Pharaoh. You got to tell him the real deal. You got to let it, and eventually Pharaoh is letting us go. And then to next week's Torah portion where it actually happens. We're kind of getting ready for that dynamic. Chapter 12, verse 29. And for our first aliyah to the Torah, we invite Tom and Jody to come forward at this time to the bima. Page 387. Vezor v'girish yosim bo v'nomar amen hakol havu godo leilu hitno kavod laTorah yamdu Avram Shmuel ben Yaakov Yocheved Bocha Yoav ben Yaakov Yocheved v'Yocheved Bocha bat Shimon bera v'Rachalea l'aliyah rishona Baruch Shatan Torah lamo Yisrael b'shato v'atem avigim Adonai Elohechem Elohim hayom
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMavorah.
Baruch Adonai Olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Just a little bit over this way, guys. There we go. Yeah, exactly.
Amen. Vayehi b'chatzi halayla v'Adonai hikachol bechor be'eretz Mitzrayim mi bechor paro hayoshev al kis'o ad bechor hashavi asher beveit habor v'chol bechor behema vayakom paro laila hu v'chol avadav v'chol Mitzrayim v'tehi tza'aka gedola b'Mitzrayim ki ein bayit asher ein sham met vayikra leMoshe ul'Aharon laila vayomer kumu tzeu mitoch ami gam atem gam b'nei Yisrael ulchu yivdu et Adonai kedaberchem gam tzonchem gam bekarchem kechu kaasher dibartem valechu uverachtem gam oti.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torat emet. V'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Our second aliyah, we invite proud grandparents, Robert and Renee, to come forward this time. Yamdu, Shimon Beryl ben Avram Vasara, Rachelea bat Sender, l'aliyah shenit.
Baruch Adonai Havarah.
Baruch Adonai Olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Toraso. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vatechezak Mitzrayim al ha'am lemaher l'shalecha min haaretz ki amru kulanu metim. Vayisa ha'am et bitzeko terem yachmatz misharotam tzururot besimlotam al shichmam. Uvnei Yisrael asu kidvar Moshe vayishalu mimitzrayim klei chesef uchlei zahav usmalot vadonai natan etchen ha'am be'enei mitzrayim vayash ilum vaynatzalu et mitzrayim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher noten lanu Torah emet v'chayei lanu atah b'sachenu Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Shekach mazel tov. Watch your step down. Okay. And we're going to go to the other side here. Okay, careful. Shekach. Just watch your step. Okay. So, our third aliyah, the big brother, invites Sandra to come forward. Yamur Yaakov Menachem ben Avram v'Chaya Hana l'aliyah shlishit. So for the third aliyah, we're in verse 37, page 388.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Hanevarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayisu b'nei Yisrael miramsei Sukkota כ600,000 רגלי הגברים לבד מיטב וגם ערב רב עלה איתם בצאן ובקר מקנה כבד מאוד ויופו את הבצק אשר תוציאו ממצרים עוגות מצות כי לא חמץ כי גורשו ממצרים ולא יוכלו להתממח וגם צידה לעשו להם ומושב בני ישראל אשר ישבו במצרים 30 שנה ו400 שנה ויהי מקץ 30 שנה ו400 שנה ויהי בעצם היום הזה יצאו כל צבאות אדוני מארץ מצרים ליל שימורים הוא לאדוני להוציאם מארץ מצרים הוא הלילה הזה לאדוני שימורים לכל בני ישראל לדורותם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tzachenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Shekach, Sandra. Way to go. Way to go. You're fit. Tova, fourth aliyah. Invite the proud parents to come forward. Yamdu Avram b'Michael v'Malka Zahava v'Chaya Hanchana bat Shimon ber Rachalea aliyah harevi'it. Our fourth aliyah, verse 43, page 389.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Hanevarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe v'el Aaron zot hukat ha'pasach kol ben necher lo yochal bo v'chol eved ish miknat kasef umalta oto az yochal bo toshav v'sachir lo yochal bo bavayit אחד יאכל לא תוציא מן הבית, מן הבשר חוצה, בעצם לא תשברו לו. כל עדת ישראל יעשו אותו, והיא יגור איתך גר. ועשה פסח לאדוני, הימו לכל זכר. ואז יקרב לעשותו, והיה באזרח הארץ, וכל ערל לא יאכל בו. תורה אחת יהיה לאזרח ולגר הגר בתוכם, ויעשו כל בני ישראל כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה ואת אהרון כן עשו. ויהי בעצם היום הזה הוציא אדוני את בני ישראל מארץ מצרים על סביבותם.
Shekaya. Beautiful.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayi olam natan.
Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Aye, Mazel Tov, Shikoach, Mazel Tov, Mom and Dad, the other side. So we now turn to our fifth Aliyah. We are in verse 1, page 391, and we call up our Bat Mitzvah. Tamod, 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 Bachurat, Bat Mitzvah, Esther, Bat Avram v'Chayachana, Le'aliyah Hamishit. The fifth Aliyah. Once again, we are in verse 1.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Kadesh li kol bechor, Peter kol rehem, bibnei Yisrael, ba'adam uva behema lihu. Vayomer Moshe el ha'am, Zachor et hayom, Hazeh asher Temi mitzrayim mi be avadim, ki behozek yad, hotzi Adonai etchem mizeh, velo ye'ahel hamet. Hayom hatem yotzim, bahodesh haviv.
Shikoach. Beautiful, beautiful. Awesome.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chaye olam natan betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov. Elanu, 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 olemo Yisrael. Elanu, elanu, olemo Yisrael. Elanu, elanu, olemo Yisrael. Elanu, olemo Yisrael. Awesome, Emerson, or Mom and Dad, you can head back to your seat, and Emerson will go to the other side there. We turn now to our sixth Aliyah. We are on page 392, verse 5. Tamod Rivka Liba bat Matul Umatal Aliyah HaShishit.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Baruch Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'haya kiviyacha Adonai el eretz hakanani v'achiti v'hamari v'hachivi v'ayuvisi asher nishba la'avotecha latet lach eretz avat chalav u'devash v'avadata et avodah hazot b'chodesh hazeh Shivat yamim tocha matzot uvayom hashvi'i chag l'Adonai matzot yachel et shivat hayamim v'lo yira'eh lecha chametz v'lo yira'eh lecha sa'or b'chol yevulecha v'yigadata levincha v'yom hahu lemor v'avor zeh asa Adonai li b'tzeiti mitzrayim v'haya lecha le'ot al yadcha uzikaron bein einecha leman tiyeh torat Adonai b'ficha כי ביד חזקה הוציאך אדוני ממצרים ושמרת את החוקה הזאת למועדה מימים ימימה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen. So, our seventh Aliyah, we are in verse 11, page 393. Invite all to please rise as the Oleh comes forward. Yamor v'sholei ben Rachel u'Moshe Berak Kohen l'Aliyah Shvi'it. We rise together to take a pause now to offer prayers in honor of healing. And we hold in our hearts as I pause in the prayer to think of those and pray for those, include the names of those who are in need of healing, both on the outside and on the inside as well. Mishe beirach avotenu, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, Imotenu, Yisrael Rachel v'Leah, hu yivarech v'rapeh et hacholim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Merachamim Aleihem Lachzikam Rapotam Ve'yishlach Lemerafuah Shlema Meshamayim Fat Nefesh Fat Aguf Batach Shol Cholim V'chazek Yodei Eskim B'tzarcheihem Shabbat Mizol Krofa Krova Lavo Ashtabak Lavizman Kariv V'nomar Amen. May the Holy One who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bring blessing and healing to all those we pray for. May the Holy One mercifully restore them to health and vigor, granting them spiritual and physical well-being, together with all others who are ill. And may God grant strength to those who tend to them. The Shabbat is a time to refrain from crying out. We had hope and pray that healing is at hand, and let us say together.
Amen.
Aliyah, verse 11, 393.
Baruch Hu es Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Michol Ha'amim V'nasan Lanu Es Toraso. Baruch Atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'haya kiviyacha Adonai al eretz haknani kasher nishba lecha v'la'avotecha netana lach v'avarta kol peter rechem l'Adonai v'kol peter sheger behema asher lecha zcharim l'Adonai v'kol peter chamor tifte baseh ואם לא תפתה וערפתו וכל בכור אדם, בבניך תפתה והיה כי שלחה בנך מחר לאמור מה זאת, ואמרת אליו בחוזק יד, הוציאנו אדוני ממצרים מבית עבדים, ויהי כי הקשה פרעה לשלחנו, והרוג אדוני כל בכור בארץ מצרים, מבכור אדם ועד בכור בהמה, על כן אני זובח לאדוני כל פטר רחם הזכרים, וכל בכור בני יפתה, והיה לאות על ידך ולטוטפות בין עיניך, כי בחוזק יד הוציאנו אדוני
ממצרים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nasan lanu Toras emes v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Shekach, we rise together. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ילמד יברח חירותי והמליך מלכותי. יהון, אור יבכה, אור יבכה בית ישראל, בגלה, ובזמן גריבים מרוח, שמי רבה מבורך, יעולם ומעלה יתברך וישתבח, וידבר בנעמם וינשא וידבר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמר קודשה, ברכו לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, ברכתה ונחמתה, ואירן במהרו. Amen. So now invite Andy and Jenny to come forward this time to help dress the Torah and to lift the Torah as well. We have another honoree. יעמוד ישראל במחל מרכזיו הגולל. And to lift the Torah.
No,
The
back here.
congregant. Congregant.
I know. Is there someone? Yeah. יעמוד יהושע בן בנימין המגביה. וזאת התורה אשר משה לבני בני ישראל על פי אדוני Maybe see everyone. Caitlin did a great job here. I should call Caitlin. Only an hour and a half like this, okay? You'll be fine. No, you're great. All right. At this time, we now are going to hear a Devar Torah, a commentary. Every bar and bat mitzvah is invited to do so, to offer their thoughts on this Torah portion of the week. This Torah portion, of course, deals with Exodus, a specific part, but really it's a theme of the entire holiday of Passover. So we're going to hear more in general about Pesach from our bat mitzvah. Bakasha.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
My Torah portion is called Bo. It is about the story of Passover. During these times, the Jewish people were enslaved by the Pharaoh of Egypt. Through difficult decisions with God, Moses came to the realization of the importance of freeing the Jewish people. Despite many trials and tribulations, Moses was able to overcome the Pharaoh's unwillingness to comply with the assistance of God. With the 10 plagues, Moses was able to lead our people out of Egypt and through the Red Sea and ultimately to freedom. As I learned more about the story of Passover, I realized there were many important lessons that we can all learn from. To name a few, the oppression the Jews faced, the desire for freedom,
standing up for what you believe in, and understanding right from wrong. Some of these lessons really hit home for me recently. A member of my family directly faced anti-Semitism. This is something that none of us had experienced to this level personally. He was faced with a difficult decision. Does he stand up or does he let it go? It is easier to say one will stand up for themselves when it is not them facing this decision. My brother knew the right action to take and was brave enough to stand up to this individual. I couldn't be more proud of him. His situation reminds me so much of many of the themes I mentioned earlier, especially standing up for what is right. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Emerson. Amazing, amazing, amazing. All right, we're going to invite you to come on down here to the middle here, the bima. Invite your parents to come on over and stand behind you over here as well to get the nachas of this moment. You can go a little farther in, Emerson, we can see you. Awesome. Emerson, I know you're smiling under there, right? Because you've done an amazing job, okay? We're so proud of you. And amazing. And not only that, but this amazing Devar Torah. I told you it's like a rare time that Eisenberg is definitely doing something right, that a sibling is actually complimented in the Devar Torah, not made fun of, okay? It's impressive. Very impressive, Emerson. And it speaks to your kindness, okay? And your good-heartedness. And a day it's really a celebration of you and your Jewish identity and who you are. You're willing to honor other people too. And that's a statement of a big piece of who you are. But even more connected to your amazing Devar Torah is you understood our Passover story really is the Jewish people's story forever. Which that sadly, as a minority people, at times, many times, we have been under oppression. Whether it's Pharaoh, whether it's Haman, whether it's modern situations, sadly, it arises. And what you know is that our people has always stood up, speaking up, not taking it, sitting down, but is willing to do what's difficult, to stand up for who we are, to be proud of who we are. It's helped us be together and exist for thousands of years, is that willingness, even when it's challenging, to push forward. And not only did your brother demonstrate that, but you demonstrated that. It is not easy to come before a congregation with mass, with Omicron and whatever Delta and Gavalt, all the others, right? And push forward with this. But you did, of your own volition, because this matters to you. Because being Jewish is part of your soul, and you want to show that to the world. You stood up for that. We are so proud of you. Kol HaGavod for putting that forward. You've demonstrated to all of us. You inspire me and Rabbi Jenny that we can do hard things. We can stand up for things we believe in, even when it's challenging. It's not ideal, okay? But, if we put our mind to it, if we put our heart to it, if our people stand behind us, if the power behind us gives us that strength, we can achieve great things. And you've shown that here today, James. We are so, so proud of you. Mazel tov, mazel tov. So with this, we invite a special blessing. Invite the parents to place a talit over their wonderful bat mitzvah's head. And we're going to offer her the oldest blessing in the Torah. As we invite all to please rise to offer this special blessing to our bat mitzvah. Elohim. Emerson, may God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you, be gracious to you. May God always look upon you and grant you peace. And we say together, Amen, Amen, Amen. Okay, Mom and Dad, you can go back to your seat. The Bat Mitzvah can stay over here with the table over here. We invite all to remain standing. We're now going to be offering a special prayer for peace and shalom in all locations. We invite at this time Andy and Cindy to come forward where I'm standing right here to offer the prayer for peace. Jenny, guide them over here. You can find the prayer for peace in your Siddurim if you'd like to follow along. On page 178.
May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world. Then
the nation will not threaten nation, and the human family will not again know war.
For all who live on earth shall realize, we have not come into being to hate or to destroy, We have come into being to praise, to labor, and to love. Compassionate God, bless the leaders of all nations with the power of compassion. Fulfill the promise conveyed in Scripture. I will bring peace to the land, and you shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you. I will rid the land of vicious beasts, and shall not be ravaged by war. Let justice and righteousness flow like a mighty stream. Let God's peace fill the earth as the waters fill the sea. And let us say, Amen.
Beautiful job, exactly. May be seated. We now continue to return the Sefer Torah to the Ark. We invite those who are honored to do so to come forward this time. We continue on page 183. Yeah, hallelujah.
יהללו את שם אדוני,
כי נזכר שמו לבדו,
הודו לארץ ושמיים, הירדן קרן לעמו, תהילה לכל חסידה, לבני ישראל עם קרובו, הללויה, הללויה. מזמור דוד, הבו לאדוני אלי, הבו לאדוני כבוד מעוז, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני באדרת קודש. כל אדוני למים, רכבות ירים, אדוני על מים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח, כל אדוני וישבר אדוני את עזי הלבנון, וירקידם כמו עגל, לבנון וציריון, כמו בן רהימים. כל אדוני חוסם להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכול לעלות, ויחשוף יערות ובחלוק כולו מרכבות, אדון עליו ולישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעם ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, את חיים היא החזית בה, את תומכיה מאושר, דרכיה דרכנה, וכל נתיבותיה שלום, השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, עד ימינו, עד ימינו, כקדם. Maybe see everyone, Shabbat Shalom. Hachon Barach. We're going to be doing some study together. Many of you, I hope, picked up a bulletin. On the other side of the Shabbat bulletin, there should be a little text to study together. And for those of you that are home, next to the live stream, there should be a little link with a click on saying Devar Torah or Torah study. Our custom here, some of you, I know last time with Sanders it was a lot, mostly remote. But some of you mostly did on the web last time. But our custom here of our shul is that the rabbis don't give a traditional sermon, but we do study together a part of the Torah portion of the week, and we do it together. So when it was non-COVID times, we actually passed a microphone around, and people shared their thoughts via microphone. It could be heard very easily and heard at home. Obviously, we're not doing microphone passing right now. So here's what we do is me and Rabbi Jenny will battle it out over here. Basically, she'll win. No, okay, we're going to have a discussion, okay? It's very Talmudic, the way the rabbis do it. We debate, okay, or discuss some ideas. And then we'll invite you, if you'd like to share, if you're visiting, even if you're not Jewish, it's totally kosher, to share a thought you have about the questions we're going to raise here about the Torah portion of the week. And then Jenny and I will repeat back as best as possible, paraphrase, so everyone can hear in the congregation at home. And we'll study some Torah together. This is the most traditional mitzvah. It's not just to hear, but to study it yourself and to really grasp it. So, what are we going to study in this one? So, our bat mitzvah said amazingly, all right?
This Torah portion is all about Passover. Really, it's the Passover story writ large, okay? And it's a specific section of it. But in this section, which is this final section where it's the end of the plagues and Moses and Pharaoh going back and forth, and finally Pharaoh says, we're going to let us go. Of course, next week's Torah portion, some of you know this well, actually Pharaoh changes his mind, then decides to chase us one last time. But at this moment, it feels like it's the end of the story, and we're finally going to be free. Let my people go. Okay. But in the midst of explaining this last section back and forth, there are three particular times. In fact, it was just chanted. Amy chanted at least two of them. I think Jenny, did one, or at least two were done by Amy. It says, and when Moses go to Pharaoh, and this is what you do. It says, and by the way, someday when you remember this Passover story, someday when you recreate the Passover ritual, which today evolved into the Passover Seder, someday you should tell your child on that day what happened to us when we left Egypt. That comes from here. So in the moment of the story, when Moses, you can imagine, is scared, the people are nervous, they're excited, they're free, they're really focusing on the story. It's like the Torah narrator in the middle says, and by the way, when this is all over, I want to remind you that in the future, you should be sure to tell your children a story about this. So first of all, it's very interesting that in the middle of the story, as it's happening, the Torah is already worried about the next generation. This has happened for every generation of Jewish parents, okay? They're worried not about the moment. They're worried about, what's going to happen 10 years from now? What's going to happen 20 years from now, okay? So first of all, it's very interesting. I want to talk about that. Why is the Torah so anxious about what's not happening now only, but what's going to happen next? It's a lot of kind of future thinking. That's number one. That's the first issue. And the second thing we're going to look on here is in each time when the Torah says, and in the next future, tell your child, it says the same thing three times mostly, but in each instance, in order of how they come up in the Torah portion, it changes the language very slightly in each one. And so we want to look, if the Torah could have said it, why is the Torah maybe looking redundant or repetitive? According to the rabbis, the Torah is never redundant or repetitive. Every word is done on purpose. Therefore, why does the Torah change each one? And what is the difference between the three? Why does it have to be said differently in three different occasions? All right, so the questions are, why in the middle of the story is the Torah worried / God about the future? And why these three different examples? And what is the slight difference in the two? What would that possibly mean? Okay. So with that as background, why don't I invite Rabbi Jenny just to read the three examples of what the Torah says to be thinking about, and then we'll get going, all right?
Sounds great. So the first example in this week's Torah portion in which this teaching comes up, it says, it shall be that when you come to the land which God will give you, as God said, and you practice or you guard this Passover ritual, and your children say to you, what does this ritual mean to you? You shall say, it is a Passover sacrifice to Adonai, to God, who passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt when God struck the Egyptians and spared our homes.
Okay, so as opposed to going into detail on this one, we'll just say, hold this one idea and see the very slight changes in the next two, and what do you notice? What do you think is going on? Go ahead, Rabbi Jay.
Okay. On that day, you shall tell your child, it is because of what Adonai, God, did for me when I came out of Egypt.
Okay, that's version 2. And now the third example.
In the future, when your child asks you, what is this? You shall tell the child, with a mighty hand, Adonai brought us out from Egypt, from the land of slavery.
Okay. So the two questions really are, why is this going into the future so much so quickly? And what are the differences in the three? Rabbi Jay, any thoughts about this? Are you the one of the questions?
I want to just add as a way of thinking about this. First of all, I think this is a sort of original source for why questions are so important in Judaism. Questions are really highlighted in the Passover Seder. In fact, we say it's so praiseworthy that the more questions you ask, the better. So there's already sort of a value within Judaism that asking questions is not only okay, it is important, and it is something that we value.
Just take a second, and I want to say particularly, this is a question where the young generation is questioning the older generation. As the parent of teenagers right now, we're not loving that dynamic always, okay? But this is basically saying it's kosher and expected that the younger generation is going to turn around and say, what does this mean to you? Why are you doing this stuff? That is a natural part of the process.
Exactly.
So the question's a little bit spicy, even, I would say.
Yes, this is exactly what I was going to say, that it is natural. It is, there's actually something sacred about the next generation even asking the question. Yeah. And it's sacred because it implies that it matters on some level to them. And it also implies that it is important that the next generation figure that answer out for themselves, whether it's sort of taking the answer that is given from the generation that comes prior and just bringing that in and adopting that as their own, or in some way taking that understanding, that teaching, and making it their own in a brand new way.
Beautiful. You're fair. Okay, and should we get into the issue of the change of the text? Maybe we'll open up a little bit to the congregation this time.
Yeah, let's see what, I mean, we have our own thoughts, obviously, but so, what do you notice?
What do you notice in the differences in the three versions and one together? Okay, we'll go here, we'll go to Deborah, we'll go around. Devorah, Vakasha, the teacher.
And we'll repeat what everybody says so live stream can hear at home.
Yes.
And it seems to me that it's a sense of ownership. In the beginning, it's you, then that becomes me. Then it becomes personal.
Yes.
In the end, it's all of us. It's the whole community. Which I think is also a very Jewish thing. We tend to think of ourselves as a collective.
Yes.
The people go into the desert as a disparate group, they come out of the desert as a collective.
Yes.
So I think that the change in the language is also indicative of that. We start out as the other.
Yep.
It becomes personal.
Yeah.
Then it belongs to all.
Preach it, Deborah.
Yes, Deborah is making an amazing,
point.
Beautiful point. She's really bringing out that in one text we have you, this sort of generic
What's it mean to you?
you.
Like it doesn't mean anything to me. Right.
Then we add in, what is it? It's my story,
Right.
this sense of personal
What God did
connection.
for me when I left Egypt. Me.
And then we have this greater sense of being a collective, a
Us.
people. This is our story,
Yefé.
our experience.
Yefé.
So
Shkoch.
we have both that individual and sense of people.
I don't want to say, but I'm going to just remark this. I think this is an issue of the Jewish method, you might say, but in some ways it's the method of any community building, including in our own country, right? What point is America not just about me, but it's about us? And the tension in America today about, some of us are very focused on the me part of America. What about the us part of America? And that's one of the challenges of actually the world today, you might say, to some degree. All right, we'll talk about it. Henry, what do you say?
And Randy.
Yeah, Randy, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Deborah dug deeply into the language.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a more superficial look at this
Yep.
and say it's three different situations on Pesach.
That's fair.
One is during the ritual.
Uh-huh.
One is what you're supposed to say sometime else. And one is what you respond when you're asked.
Wow.
So you're supposed to do all of
This is so Talmudic. I love it. Shkoch.
to complete
Yes.
what it says in the Torah.
And so this one I say, this is exactly how the Talmud does it, Henry. That's beautiful. Deborah gave an analysis, like essentially a literary / underneath the meaning of it. Now Henry's just saying, no, it's just essentially three ways of doing the Passover ritual. I'm going to expand on Henry's three educational moments in a way. There are three different ways you should teach the child who asks. One is this way, one's depending on the circumstance that you're doing it. Even if you're in the midst of the Passover holiday or outside of the holiday in just a normal experience. It's a beautiful idea. It's basically saying it's an educational model of how to pass on a tradition as opposed to necessarily getting into the depth of every single aspect of the word. That's a great point.
And what I really appreciate about what Henry shared also is that it's not, the Passover story is not only something that we think about, remember, feel connected to during the holiday itself.
Right.
This is something far, far bigger about our sense of who we are in the world.
Yefé. It's all the time. All right, Randy, Vakasha.
So I see like three very basic but very important questions. So the first one is the what. It's the Passover sacrifice to Adonai. The second one is the why. It's what Adonai is.
Wow.
And the third is how.
Oh!
Love that.
We know how. Story.
That's awesome.
Want to be kind.
Yes.
What we've learned, we're not going to pass it on.
Wow, Randy, I love that.
So great. So Ronnie said
That's awesome.
this question is being asked with sort of three different ways, three different emphases. First of all, what? What is this
what
ritual?
happened, essentially, yeah.
And then why?
Why?
And then how did it
How did it
happen?
happen,
And if
right.
we don't have an understanding of each of those components on some level, we're missing something.
Essentially,
Beautiful.
it's not a story yet until we
Yeah.
understand those pieces of information. Yefeh. All right,
Great,
good.
Bonnie.
Bonnie, Vakasha, Mr. Ellen. Yeah.
I see such a contrast between the first and the third one. The first one talks about God striking down the Egyptians,
Yeah.
killing, and then the third one talks about rescuing
Yes,
Israel.
that's another.
And if you didn't know all the backstory, these don't even seem connected.
Right. Right,
Yeah.
the first one's kind of violent in a way, like it's emphasizing the destructive aspect, whereas the third one makes it seem a bit smoother. Bonnie's point is like, do you want to say it?
Yeah,
it's very nice. Very nice.
The way to describe what happened,
Right.
what details are drawn out
Exactly.
and emphasized are very different.
Yes.
And we can also feel within this text, for those who are familiar with the Passover Seder, the four children, that there's
Exactly.
this idea that within education, of course, we have incredible educators here who have been my teachers. You know, we teach to the child. Every child is different. That there's going to be one child is going to be moved by the fact that God got the bad guys, right? Another child is going to be moved by the fact that God was there to protect us and save us.
Forget the children. I like an action movie like this first
Right,
version.
right.
I'm into the like. Let's
I
see
don't-
it.
I don't
like
wanna
I
watch
like Fauda. Yes, I like Jenny can't stand
I
Fauda.
would
okay?
never
I
sleep
told
for
you
the
guys
rest
that.
of my
It's
life.
a good like denim. Okay, but I guess that's actually a very cool idea. Bonnie saying like. You have to know which child's going to be fired up about what version of the story to keep them engaged. Kol hakavod. I love that.
great.
I love that.
It's great.
Is it a
Yeah.
rom-com or is it an action
Right.
movie? All right.
Ellen.
Ellen, what do you say?
Well, and touched on a lot of this. This is all part of the story we tell about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the Torah is basically emphasizing, this is the story you have to tell every year, every day,
Yeah.
every generation.
Yeah.
Every generation has to continue telling the story, because the story is what makes us us.
Yes.
So
Ellen.
great.
So
So Ellen's
true.
really
So
elevating
true.
the fact that how we make meaning in our lives, how we build identity, how we move through the world is the foundation of who we are. That who we understand ourselves to be is built on those stories that we tell ourselves. And this is our story. This is our story.
I was going to add
Yeah.
one more thing before it goes
Yeah.
on. If you read the book *Sapiens* by Yehud, that guy Ben Ari, that guy, it's his whole
Harari.
slicha, Israeli. His whole thing is what survival of humanity is based on the fact that we could tell a story and share a story together, and that could save us. I know Alan's familiar with that, and that's very because what you're just saying here. Basically, without a story, there is no people. There is no, in a sense, no existence without a story that you can tell yourself about yourself.
But it's even more than that, because all of us have our own stories.
Yes.
The stories are part of us, they are us.
Yes.
And there's another book that we're reading right now called Story Intelligence,
Yes.
which is on the par with emotional intelligence and
Yefeh.
IQ.
Beautiful.
That we can change our stories,
Right.
but the stories that are passed down to us are part of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Alan's just saying how existential the story we tell or know is to who we are
Both
and how
the
we exist.
stories that are ours
So
in a
true.
very individual way,
Right.
and the stories that have been
Collective.
passed down to us that are
Yefeh.
also part of us.
All right, Stuart, Bakasha, Tada.
Reading Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and he said, we're not a people of history, we're a people of memory.
Yes, yes.
So Zachor is the key thing, that we place ourselves at the spots. We place ourselves at Sinai, we place ourselves in Egypt, we place ourselves, so memory is what we are as a people. Remember, it's always remember, and that's how we bind ourselves together.
Amen.
We
Amen.
are the people at that moment.
Stuart is making a fantastic point. He's relating to Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, but it's also written by a famous Chaim Yosef Yerushalmi, who wrote a book called Zachor. It's the same amazing idea, well said, which basically is we are not a people say the Jewish people of Jewish history. Yes, we have history. Of course we do. But we're actually people of memory. We're all about remember. It's all about And memory is not the same, because what we remember is not necessarily the factually necessarily accurate. It's our interpretation, is what we remember of things. Like, we remember our childhood. I would tell my parents, I remember this. They'd be like, oh, that's not how it happened. That's how you imagined it to happen. Well, that's what happens with memory. Memory gets intermixed with imagination. Things happen. You value certain things in memory. Beautiful point. All right, Dr. Perlstadt.
I'd like to point out that we have a manual, the Haggadah.
Yes.
That we follow on Passover.
Yes.
People don't have to read Exodus, they don't have to copy it, but if they celebrate it in their homes, we have a siddur, a Haggadah, even from Maxwell House.
Actually, do. So
Harry,
Harry's, yeah. No, see, Harry's point is he's saying, like, you don't have to open up the Torah itself and flip it open. You have a manual to help guide you through the Pesach Haggadah, which actually is called the telling. And it comes directly from this verse. Higgadah levincha. You should tell your child. It's all about, in fact, that manual is just to encourage us, right? As you said, beautifully, to tell the story. That's the whole point of it. You fit. All right, any other thoughts before we kind of maybe wrap this up? Did I miss anybody? All right, Susan, Vaksha.
Just very quickly, I'm struck by the notion of time, in that when you're a slave, and the Israelites were in fact slaves, it's really difficult, if not impossible, to perceive a future. And
Yes.
And
good point.
The last one allows the Israelites perhaps to recognize there is a future.
Yes.
And to have the ability to look forward. When you're enslaved, that is perhaps impossible.
Beautiful. You know, Susan, I'm really touched by Susan saying, I think she probably was hurt the most being on the bima, but she's basically saying it's a sign of freedom for a slave people to start dreaming about what the future will be like and how we'll tell our story. It's already an imagination. It's kind of like, just to give another kind of more contemporary example, like during the Holocaust, the Shoah, when someone's suffering in a concentration and saying, someday we'll tell a story about this, means they believe there will be a someday. Even believing there's a someday is actually a symbol of freedom on some level. It's a spark that maybe, sadly, in true enslavement and true oppression, you don't even imagine there is someday. You can't even get to a future place.
And
that is beautiful. I love that.
I do. I love that also. I think it's also a reminder to us that in our moments of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, of narrow constriction, of difficulty, of trauma, of hardship, of sorrow, it's natural. Psychologically, we can't yet tell the story. We can only be in our distress and our grief and our shock. But the Torah is teaching us, one day we will be able to tell the story. And not only will we be able to tell the story, we must tell the story. Mm-hmm. And there will be something deep and meaningful and redemptive that we can not only tell ourselves, but tell the next generation. I'm
going to give Amy a last comment in a second. I want to say one last thing, is to say that one of the powerful things, Emerson, you're going to be able to do one day, right? There's one way to look at this, and Sandra had this too. Oy vey, my bar mitzvah happened under COVID. We couldn't have that. That is, and it's true. The other way to tell us someday, Emerson, God willing, okay? You're going to say, I have my bar mitzvah under COVID. So everyone else, shh, okay? I know I'll remember, because someday, please God, you're going to look back and be like, I overcame. Right? I pushed through. So they're both true stories. It's not ideal. It's not ideal, right? I don't like the mask either, okay? It's not ideal. But you pushed through anyway. It was 6 feet of snow and uphill also, by the way, Emerson, all right? Tell that story too. So you Chicago white snow, that's all right? But it's true. What a statement of overcoming, right? That's an awesome statement of being Jewish too. All right, Jamie, what do you say?
I just want to say you started off with the comment that right as the story's happening, they're told to remember. Right as it's happening. And this is something that we have today, tying into the last couple of comments. We all of us say, oh, I wish I had talked to my grandparents about their history. I wish I knew more about what they said. And that we all then chastise each other. No, talk to them right now. Then we can, on the phone, record it, make sure you do this. In the Holocaust, the group of the Onik Shabbat group in Poland and Warsaw had the foresight to collect documentation at the moment.
You're right.
Because the Torah tells us this is important. So
Amen.
it's sort of a lesson to all of us, even today in our lives. Document what you're doing during COVID. Document what you're doing with the stories of those relatives that you have that may be older in years. The Torah is telling us do it now.
Yes, that's a great point, Amy. It's actually kind of the holiness of archiving, of archiving or archivist or archivalation, is that it's by holding on to these things in the moment, that's the fresh time that actually be able to pass it on. Because it may be passed, and you may not find the time so easily later on for a variety of reasons. Shakoch, Amy, beautifully done. Awesome, awesome conversation. Anything else, Rabbi Jay? You fit. All right, guys, that concludes our conversation here, our study of Shakoch. Great learning. We now are going to turn to the Mustaf Prayer. We rise together on page 184 for Chatzi Kaddish.
יתקדש ויתקדש מרבה, במעד יברח וימליך מלכותך, יהון יומך, וחי דרכו בית ישראל, עגלה עגלה, ובזמן קריבים אלו, אמן, יש מרבה מדורה, לרבה מהליה יתברך, וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם, ויתנשא ויתהדר, ויתהלל שמי לקודשא בריחו, ונאמין כל ברכתה ושירתה, ושמחתה ללחם אתה, תמיד ועם ואילהו. Amen.
So, once again, our feet together towards the ark, towards Yerushalayim. Pages 185 to 187, we daven together. Rest is done silent.
Adonai
Sevatarira uvia ideilatecha Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Imateinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Zara Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים, עונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו ויאהבה, מלך עוזר, ופוקד ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, נחיה מתים את הרב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, לחגל חיים בחסד, לחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, לשני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך מביט ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה.
ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני,
בשמוע
מחיי המתים,
אמן.
נריצך ונקדישך כתוציח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, ככתוב על יד ימיך,
וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש,
צבאות
מלך הארץ כבודו.
כבודו מלא עולם, משרתיו שואלים זה לזה, האם מקום כבודו לעומתם, ברוך יאמרו,
ברוך אדוני יקראו.
ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים, ויחונם המייחדים שמו ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים ביבמה, שמה אומרים, שמה ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור,
לא ציון לדור ודור, הללויה.
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו פירוש לעולם ועד, כי על מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני
בשמו.
האל הקדוש.
Amen. Silent Amidah.
Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Ve'al kulam.
203.
יתקדש ויתקדש ורבה ועלמד דברי חירותי וימיך מלכותי בחיי חונה ומחול ובחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה בזמן קריב והימנו אמן יש ורבה וברך לעולם עולם ועולם יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן ועלמה והימנו אמן תתקבץ לטון ובוטון לכל ישראל קדם אבהונדי בשמי והימנו אמן יהי שלום ארום מן שמיה וחיים עלינו וכל ישראל והימנו אמן עושה שלום ממרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו וכל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל והימרו אמן
204.
אין כאלוהינו,
אין אדוננו, אין מלכנו, אין מושיענו, מי אלוהינו, מי חתננו, מי מלכנו, מי מושיענו. נוד אל אלוהינו, נוד אל אדוננו, נוד אל מלכנו, נוד אל מושיענו. ברוך אלוהינו, ברוך אדוננו, ברוך מלכנו, ברוך מושיענו. אתה הוא אלוהינו, אתה הוא אדוננו, אתה הוא מלכנו, אתה הוא מושיענו, אתה הוא שתינו אבותינו. לבניך
אקטור את הסמים עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כארצות ולא זמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגמר עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והאדוני מלך על כל הארץ, היום ההוא ביום ההוא, כי אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
May be seated. We turn now to page 207. We invite those in mourning or observing a yard site this Shabbat. I invite you to rise on page 207 for mourners Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach leolam amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar, v'yitale, v'yithalal, shmei l'kodesha, leila, minko berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yarma v'yimru Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom imromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru
Amen.
Maybe see everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Invite now Emerson to come to the Shulchan. Invite our Board of Trustees, exactly, past president, Susan Ehrlich, to offer gifts.
Happy to do that. And come on up here.
Let's look tall. Emerson Mazel Tov, what a beautiful way to share Shabbat with us on this cold January day. You just really warmed up the sanctuary and warmed our hearts. I love what you said about picking out that piece from in your Devar about speaking out and just having the courage to do that. So thank you for bringing that to our Shabbat. So it is my honor on behalf of the Board of Trustees to share the following gifts with you. Your whole family is proud of you, but your Beth Meyer family is also proud and glowing with what you have accomplished today. And we would like to commemorate that with a beautiful mezuzah for you to bring with you on your travels as you will launch in the world. That will happen in due time. And let's see, there's a kosher parchment. This is a Tanakh to bring with you as well. And then there is a Kiddush cup in here from your Beth Meyer family. So Mazel Tov. You can
Mazel Tov.
Thank you. You can have a seat. I'm going to go on this side now. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Susan Ehrlich, honored to represent the Board of Trustees of Beth Meyer. Mazel Tov to the Eisenberg family and visiting guests. I want to point out a couple items on the Shabbat bulletin. We have truly entered 2022. I love that we have a QR code for people to scan at the end of Shabbat, and that'll take you, I assume, to the Beth Meyer website, which is a really robust website. Again, after Shabbat, take a look. That has a lot of wonderful learning activities. Let me just point to a couple activities that of interest coming up immediately, as in tomorrow. A very interesting Sunday morning brunch speaker at 11 a.m., and this is by Zoom, right? Yeah, okay. Larry Marks, who is the president of the Wake Interface Disaster Team, is going to be sharing the activities of that organization, staffed mostly by volunteers and, of course, some professionals. And it might be, sadly, of particular interest given some of the critical challenges we're facing these days. There are two wonderful drives that we are sponsoring. Sisterhood Shabbat, which is next Shabbat, is looking for donations for new and gently read books for babies and children up to age 12, and there's a bin for that collection, as well as Social Action Committee has a food drive supporting JFS, their food pantry, and you can find that box of bins as well in both lobbies of the buildings.
thank you again to the Eisenberg family, and Mazel Tov to Emerson, and Shabbat Shalom.
Awesome.
Thank you, Susan.
Shikot, beautifully done. So a reminder, we have minions, of course, tomorrow at 9 on Sunday, Monday at 7:30 a.m. on Zoom, and Wednesday now at 5:30. We are now doing an experiment with an earlier minion on Wednesday evenings at 5:30. Now, all these are always available by Zoom as well. We know we have a lot of people visiting here for a wonderful celebration of the Eisenbergs. So beyond you, excluding you just for a moment, if there's anyone else here who is visiting for a first time or is newish or shul shopping, or anyone who we know who's a local, is anyone here we have not introduced before, or we like to usually embarrass you, make you stand up and say who you are? Is there anybody new who we can invite? Oh, please, yes, please. Sir. Will you rise and tell us who you are? Awesome. Wonderful. I mean, a university, like which one are you at? NC State? No. Okay. Okay.
Visiting from afar.
Oh, you're visiting. Okay, got it. UNLV. Also, we'll talk basketball later. Okay, that's good. All right. Awesome. Glad to have you with us. Welcome. Welcome. Glad to have you. Awesome. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. All right, cool. So with that, we're going to wrap up with Adon Olam, Rabbi Jay.
That sounds great. 2:11.
Awesome. 2:11.
Adon Olam,
Hashem
Olam,
B'Terem Bo, Yitzir Nira, Yinasa, B'Chezeko, Zalal Hashem Nigra, Adon Olam, V'Yacharei Yilot Darko, Levado Yimlok Nora, Adon Olam, Vehu Haya, Vehu Hoveh, Vehu Yevivara, Adon Olam, לעם שלו להכבירה אדון עולם, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ועוז והמזרח אדון עולם, והוא אלי וחי גולי, וצורך לי ויצרה אדון עולם, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מרכז לי ויועד אדון עולם. Please rise. Aki ruchi v'tishane ha'ira Adon Olam. Ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira Adon Olam. Akim berach Adonai et yom ha'shabbat v'kadshehu savri.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'rei peri hagafel.
Amen. You can take a minute. There you go. Shikoch. Awesome. Done.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Hamotzi lehemin. Take a bite. Shabbat Shalom. Mazel Tov. Shabbat Shalom. Mazel Tov. Emerson. You did it. Elbow. All right. Shikoch. Mazel Tov. Shabbat Shalom.
Shikoch.